Hi, welcome. My name is Matilda, and in this video we're going to be discussing season 2 of Rick and Morty.
Intro.
So let me start with another entry in my nostalgic ice cream thingy. This is Twister Peekaboo. The Twister of my childhood was strawberry, orange, and lemon ice cream. Then there was a Twister with a creamy pineapple, kiwi, and I think raspberry core. And this is the newest entry, and I know what it tastes like. Frankly, it's like, for European standards, that's like a 4 out of 10 flavor-wise. For American standards, from what I know, like, if you like snow cones, this is like 11 out of 10 though, so at your own risk. It looks dope though. What kind of spoilers can you expect in this video? I'm not going to spoil the end of any particular episode. I'm only going to be giving brief reviews. She wants my ice cream, but no. I'm only going to be giving brief reviews of each of the episodes. But what I am spoiling though is character arcs. So if you think that knowing the changes that the character goes through in the season spoils it for you, you should not keep watching. If you don't care though, welcome to the video. And now let's just get into it. Oh, by the way, those are my 2 Funko Pops which I got for some occasions. I have a Get Schwifty Rick and one of my favorite characters, Crumbopulous Michael. Let's head into the first episode, which is Wrinkle in Time. The episode takes up from where we left off in the season 1 finale, where Rick froze time to give himself, Summer, and Morty more time to clean the house before the parents' arrival. And in this episode, he unfreezes the time, which, after having been frozen for so long, like I think about 6 months, it becomes unstable, which causes complications for him and the grandkids. So that's the plotline number 1. Plotline number 2 is Beth and Jerry going to the Cold Stone Creamery to get some ice cream, and Jerry hits a deer on the road. Beth tries to save the deer. When it comes to their arc in the episode, Jerry demonstrates that while he has weak character and doesn't have much initiative in the times of confrontation, he truly cares about Beth and her comfort and her mental well-being. But in the Rick plotline, the grandkids fight for Grandpa's attention. I stand by what I said in my season 1 review, that Summer does not, at least not yet, care about Rick as a person. She is deeply insecure. She doesn't really have any friends, and she's not happy with her social standing. And even though she's Mom's favorite, Mom doesn't really pay more attention to her anyway, and Jerry's approval doesn't matter. So she's really desperate to have some sort of approval from a parental or grandparental figure. Morty, on the other hand, cares. Morty cares about Rick. And Rick's arc in this episode is just proving that he doesn't care about any of them, and that both of them are equally bad. And that he thinks equally poorly about both of them. However, he does have a selfless moment in this episode. So just a classic good one to kick things off. And the post-credit scene mentions Einstein and messing with time, which panders to the part of the public who likes feeling smart while watching Rick and Morty. Episode 2 is Morty Night Run. Jerry tags along when Rick teaches Morty to drive, but because they have some stuff to do, they leave him in Jerry Boree, so a daycare for Jerry's. It's an idea of one of the interdimensional Ricks, not our Rick. Rick, on the other hand, decides to sell a gun to a murderer, and Morty's not fine with that. Morty then takes on himself to save a creature, and because of that is made to make a lot of difficult decisions in the episode. Morty goes through some traumatic stuff this episode. Rick doesn't really go through anything. The notable thing about this episode is the character of Fart, the character that Morty saves, because he's voiced by that one guy, Jermaine Clement, and his amazing song of Goodbye Moonman. I don't really have to say much about the Morty arc, except that it's a difficult time for him. The character of Crumbopulous Michael, who's a ton of people's favorite, or one of their favorites, and the Roy Simulator, which is also somewhat of a cult thingy in the fandom. Episode 3 is Autoerotic Assimilation. Rick and Morty meet Unity, an entity that takes over worlds in which all the organisms become part of it. It turns out to be an old flame of Rick's. They spend time in the Unity assimilated world, where Summer goes on a journey to take a chill pill. Beth and Jerry discover Dick Fingers McGee in the basement. When they're confronted with a problem, their marital issues come to light. Jerry sees that Beth has abandonment issues and allows Rick to walk all over their family and wants Beth to realize that. And Beth wants to not rock the boat in order to maintain status quo so that Rick won't leave again. The not rocking the boat is a very popular metaphor within a community of people who were raised with narcissistic parents. The metaphor goes that usually that when there's a family with an abusive person, the non-abusive people are told not to rock the boat, not to unbalance the family, not to destroy the status quo, because it will make things more difficult for everybody else, when in reality the boat rocker is the abusive person. They unbalance the family all the time, but the blame is placed on the others. I just thought that it's interesting. It's mildly relevant just because Beth is so determined to keep the status quo. That's a theme with Beth in this season. What are the lessons to be learned in this episode? Well, don't judge a book by its cover. Listen to your spouse when they come to you with issues. And Rick is so destructive that he can make a destructive force of nature self-destruct. Yeah. Episode 4 is Total Recall, which is like the Total Recall, the movie. That's the episode about the parasites who infest the Morty family. They multiply by making family members dream various scenarios, because those dreams and those imaginings are the breeding ground for the parasites. The parasites manifest as different kind of wacky characters who are sometimes friends of the family and sometimes family members. I'm going to mention some parts of the episode and trying to avoid spoilers as much as possible. There is a character of Mr. Poopy Butthole. People who watch the show will know what I'm talking about. And the whole thing with him is kind of, again, demonstrating the Smith family dynamics. It's, for the Smith family, it's the bad things that make us human. And supposedly what makes us human is what makes us have value. So kind of that's maybe why the Smith family romanticizes vices and pathology. And by Smith family, I mainly mean Beth, who's the matriarch of the family under Rick. So our vices have value, which maybe explains their attitudes towards saving problems and self-help and self-improvement quite a bit, because they're kind of against it for the most part. Family members whose dreams are the focus of the attention of the episode are Rick, Summer, and Jerry. Rick's are the least complicated. He just visualizes badass adventures and some more friends. Summer, on the other hand, visualizes a very childish characters who are her friends, which I think speaks to the fact that she's very lonely, that she needs companionship, and kind of also maybe showcases that she is a bit childish. Let's take the psychoanalytic approach and like take regression into account. The characters that she visualizes are childish puppets. So we can kind of infer from that maybe she has some unresolved issues stemming from her childhood, some childhood trauma, or maybe is just immature, or maybe all of those, and they are linked. Jerry and Beth, kind of the whole family, but mainly Jerry, think that Beth has a husband, Gary. Gary is Beth's husband and also Jerry's lover. In that scenario, Jerry becomes the family friend. And there is a conversation between them when Gary goes away, where Jerry goes to Beth for comfort, and she denies him and says that she needs to forget about Gary. And he says, me too. And I think this is a very good conversation, because what Beth means is, I need to forget that you cheated on me. And what Jerry means when he says he also needs to forget about Gary is that he needs to forget about the emotional connection that he just lost. This whole conversation and there's misunderstanding kind of is a foreshadowing towards the marriage therapy episode, which we will be discussing shortly. There is a segment about Rick cementing a bunch of random catchphrases such as grass tastes bad, or sham sham schlippity it up, or hit the sack Jack. Those are completely random bunch of words, but I think it's meant to poke fun at the Smith family taking Rick's word as gospel, but also at the audience who does the same and makes some random ass words that Rick says, like they did with Wabba Labba Dab Dab from season 1, into some big and cool thing. I think it also goes with that. Some people who watch the show think of themselves as smart and the show as smart, if you know what I mean. Anyhow, let's move on to episode number 5, which is Get Schwifty, the episode where a giant head appears in the sky demanding that the earth shows it what they got. Rick and Morty go to the Pentagon and join forces with the president to save the situation. Beth, Summer, Jerry, and the whole neighborhood do the same, only their weapon of choice against the giant head is thoughts and prayers. Principal Vagina plays a giant role in that. The main takeaway from this episode is, again, what Summer does, is that Summer dives head first into this new religious cult, which kind of proves what we learned in the previous episode about her being childish, that she needs some structure in her life, some kind of moral compass, I guess, and by her parents' words, she thrives in the new system, in the new religion. Beth and Jerry, on the other hand, team up together, and this is also foreshadowing to the marriage therapy episode. It shows that when they're not fighting against each other, they do very well together as a team, actually. There is also Bird Person also makes a brief appearance, where he plays the role of a Rick apologist. I think that Bird Person just is in a way different situation than Rick's family, which actually would work in the sense that when there is an abusive person, a narcissistic person in a family, usually the family friends don't know about the narcissistic abuse or the narcissism of the person. Like, people in that kind of families broadcast an image different than what is actually going on, and the people like that do in general. So I think Rick can simultaneously be a good friend to Bird Person, and as we know, not a great family member, because we know that he's not that. Also, Ice-T makes an appearance. Episode 6 is The Ricks Must Be Crazy. When the car breaks down, Rick leaves Summer in the tender care of the sentient car, and him and Morty go inside the car battery, which is actually a small universe where all the people in it work to provide the energy to power the car. It turns out that there is a scientist inside the battery that came up with the same exact technology. The themes of the episode are kind of hypocrisy, self-serving moral relativism of Rick. There's also a miniverse, like one of the universes in the show, which looks vaguely human-like, and I wonder whether maybe the similarities between all the universes weren't meant to kind of underline and showcase the hypocrisy and the mental gymnastics that Rick goes through to justify his actions. And on the other hand, I don't think that things that happen to Summer have a theme or something, but they are important. Like, is Summer the main character of the season? I don't know, but there's a ton of happening to her, and this episode is important because it's a trauma whose consequences are kind of observable in the later episodes. There's also a small inconsistency because people in the miniverse speak English, and Rick teaches them that middle fingers up mean peace among worlds, and by the end of the episode, one of the characters uses peace among worlds as an insult, which is kind of, I think maybe, did they forget that there was a sign? The joke wasn't that peace among worlds means F you. The joke was that F you means peace among worlds. I think they got a little bit confused by the end of the episode. It always bothered me just a tiny bit. Anyhow, let's go to episode number 7, which is Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. That's the marriage therapy episode, and also a tiny Rick episode as well. Jerry and Beth are sent to an alien planet to receive alien marriage therapy. There, their perceptions of each other are made into real life forms, into real life mythologizations who are also like biological life, and the interactions between the animals is meant to be therapeutic because we can learn from that. And on the other hand, there's a vampire in Morty and Summer High School. Rick turns himself into a teenager and goes to help them kill the vampire. However, after that happens, he decides to stay in the teenage body a little while longer. When it comes to the marriage therapy, it shows that Beth and Jerry are codependent, maybe kind of trauma bonded, that their difficult circumstances made them rely on each other in an unhealthy way, but they are incapable of existing outside of that relationship. Also, we learn that Jerry thinks that Beth, quote, that Beth has the mind of a robot and a heart of an insect, and, like, taking words straight up from his head, the monster Beth says that there can only ever be one of her because she is the strongest, smartest being alive. That's the way that Jerry thinks of Beth. And Beth is egocentric. That's the takeaway from this episode. On the other hand, if we consider the Rick and the kids storyline though, Rick loses the access to existential dread, to the awareness that we are all going to die one day. And it turns out that this awareness, this desperation, this angst is part of what makes Rick Rick. And re-awareness of this via an Elliott Smith song is what Rickifies him back. Morty kind of just shows that he's still a dumb kid who doesn't really see, Rick's flaws or is not aware of the situation. Summer, on the other hand, demonstrates more objectivity and situational awareness and understanding of, I think, Rick as a person. And I think we can infer that it's, at least in part, due to trauma of episode 6. Or actually, I'm going to assume that it's 100% because of the trauma of what she went through when she sat in the car in episode 6. I hope that you're already seeing that this episode has a ton of continuity, and while you can still watch the episodes out of order because there's not a ton of reference points when it comes to the events that take place, if you watch them in order, the characters go through a change. There is a character arc to every character in this season. Episode 8 is Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate. Rick and grandkids watch Interdimensional Cable at the hospital where Jerry is treated for an alien disease. He is asked by the doctors to donate his penis in order to save the life of a very important alien, like the personification of interplanetary peace, kind of. Because of that, Jerry faces a difficult decision and bites off more than he can chew. The episode shows that he has a reliant personality and relies on other people to save him and can't cope with the consequences of his own actions, and also is he's capable of making decisions for himself, but he's not very good at that and doesn't deal well with the consequences of them. When it comes to the interdimensional cable plotline of the episode, I'm just going to list my 5 favorite clips once again. Number 5 is the Octopus Man, who is a very chaotic villain. He made me think of the Joker, and I don't like Joker. I think he would have made a better Joker than Joker would. One day I might make a video about Jokers. Number 4 is the commercial for Little Bits, the restaurant for little tiny dishes, like lasagna or little tiny eggs. I just thought it's amusing. Number 3 is the commercial for Eye Holes, the alien cereal, which I think look gross, but are funny. Number 2 is Gen Quadrant Vincent 16. I assume it's installment 16 of the franchise, because there cannot be more than 8 Gen Michael Vincents to a precinct. And number 1 is the mini documentary on how plumbuses are made. Like, everybody has a plumbus in their home, and I always wanted to know how plumbuses were made, you know? Episode 9 is Look Who's Purging Now, or the only episode in the whole series, I think, that I hated from the get-go. I think by the time season 3 came out, it still was the only episode that I actively disliked, and the only episode I ever skipped, just straight up skipped upon rewatches. I mean, I've seen it multiple times, but at some point I accepted I just don't like it. The plot of the episode is that in search of wiper fluid, Rick and Morty land their car on a planet of cat people that purge, like in the movie, by murdering people one night of the year. And on this very night, Rick and Morty arrive on the planet, and Rick insists upon experiencing it. Morty is only convinced to stay when he meets a cat girl called Arthricia. On the other hand, the other plotline is just Jerry bothering Summer. There is nothing to take away from this episode. I think it was the first purely filler episode of the series. That's it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But please stay for the grand finale of episode 10, The Wedding Squanchers. By accident, Jerry is shipped by an interdimensional courier flap to Tammy and Bird Person's wedding, which forces Rick and the family to follow and join them. Rick is not thrilled about the wedding. Rick really struggles with accepting his best friend choices, and Beth and Jerry behave horribly, terribly. A thing happens and the family has to flee the wedding in search of a new home planet. Their choices are very limited because the only choices are Scream Sun Planet, Cobb Planet, and Tiny Planet. And it's all Rick's fault. The family struggles with what to do next. Beth absolutely rejects giving Rick up to the authority. She'll be heartbroken if she leaves. Jerry advocates for giving Rick up to the authority because from his perspective, it's going to be good for the family in the long run. Summer from season 1 or from the beginning of the season wouldn't have cared either way. But now, because of the trauma car and the Tiny Rick episode where she bonded with Rick, essentially models Beth's behavior. She also, at this point in time, actually cares about Rick, and she's willing to forgive all his vices. When her mother doesn't even really want to acknowledge the things that Rick does wrong, Summer is actually aware of his vices but is willing to overlook them and suffer the consequences of them. Morty says that the whole family mostly loves Rick, and he is aware of Rick's vices. So like when it comes to the level of unhealthiness, Beth's attachment is absolutely toxic. Summer's is slightly better. Morty's is even better in the sense that he's the most self-aware, because he is also aware of the consequences he's going to suffer, not only just willing to accept them, but understanding what the consequences are. But at the same time, he shows that he won't be heartbroken if Rick leaves. He's the most chill about the situation, and Rick essentially becomes aware of the consequences of his actions. So to wrap things up, Jerry asks Beth and the kids, for the rest of your lives, no matter how much it hurts you, no matter how much it destroys our children's future, we're going to do whatever Rick wants, whenever he wants. And they all say yes. And that's where everyone is, emotionally speaking, at the end of episode 10 of season 2, which wraps up with a great musical moment of Hurt by 9 Inch Nails. It's a very good song, and it really matches the tone of the end of the episode. And yeah, that's it. That's all the episodes. So to sum up character arcs, Rick is toxic and chaotic with like 2 flashes of being a good person throughout the episode. Morty is a kid. He has his more and less aware moments, but at the end of the season seems to be attached to Rick in the least unhealthy way. Beth just straight up insecurely attached and has abandonment issues with Rick. Jerry shows that he's committed to the family and to Beth, loves them and wants the best of them, but also lacks, because of his subservience to Beth, lacks the power to push for what he thinks is right or to push for a compromise or something. And Summer goes through an interesting journey because she starts not caring about Rick. Then we learn that she has childhood issues and attachment issues and that she's very lonely. She goes through a trauma, she bonds with Rick, and ends the season truly caring about him and also insecurely attached. And I think that's it. Now let me super quickly rank the episodes. In the last 10th place, we have episode 9. Look Who's Purging Now, because it is the worst and it sucks. From then on, we move on to place number 9, episode 8, Interdimensional Cable 2, Testing Fate. And that's just because this episode is not particularly deep. The clips were worse, and I don't care about Jerry's penis, is my takeaway from that. In place number 8, we have episode 3, Autoerotic Assimilation, which is the episode with Unity and Dick Fingers McG. I just don't think we learn a lot about the characters from this episode, and I didn't really find it all that amusing. However, only the last place is the worst. Now we're talking mediocre episodes. And in place number 7, we have episode 1, A Wrinkle in Time, which I like this episode. It's not the best, but I enjoy it, not because of the fractured time storyline, but because of the Jerry is Beth's hero storyline. And this is a theme of this ranking, that I care about season 2's episode because I learn a lot about the characters from them. In place number 6, we have episode 6, The Ricks Must Be Crazy, which is the space car and miniverse episode. I enjoyed both sequences and I found them amusing, but I also enjoy the impact that that episode clearly leaves on Summer. In place 5, we have episode 2, Morty Night Run, which has Crumbopulous Michael and Fart, the singing fart. And this episode is amusing, I just find it funny, but also it is relevant because of the Jerry Boree thingy Jerry goes through a lot. Yeah, no, this is so high in the rankings mainly because I like Crumbopulous Michael so much. In place number 4, we have episode 5, Get Schwifty. Love the journey that Summer goes on with the whole religion plot. I like Beth and Jerry and what they do, and Get Schwifty is a jam. Number 3 is episode 4, Total Recall. This is the Parasite episode, and I think the medium of parasites, it's a fun way to show us more from into the psyche of the characters. Place number 2 is episode 10, The Wedding Squanchers. I really like how concisely it showed what every character's deal is, and I think it was interesting. Rick's backstory was interesting. Squanchy officiated the wedding, and I really like him. I love the joke of Nightcrawler pate being one of the snacks. Nightcrawler is one of my all-time comic crushes, and now just in place number 1, the best episode of the season is episode 7, Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. I was surprised that it was the episode that won to me. That's the Tiny Rick and marriage therapy episode. I absolutely love everything about the marriage therapy plotline. It just slaps and is the best. When it comes to the Tiny Rick episode, it has a cool song. It's amusing. I love how much of a changed person Summer is when you compare it to the previous episode. I like that Morty is shown to be a little bit of an asshole, and I think that Rick's deal is pretty interesting in this episode. And that's it. That's all. That's all I've got to say. And thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope that you enjoyed yourself. Please tell me if you do. And I hope to see you probably next week when I discuss season 3. Stay excited for season 5 and subscribe if you don't want to miss an update. All my social media are linked in the description box if that's also something that you might be interested in. See you soon, and bye-bye.